Christian, I want to thank you for taking this time this early morning, Saturday morning, to come in here and to be on the podcast. I've wanted to have you on for a long time. I've talked to you a long time ago, I think. And then we met at one of the it's called the UP organization. There was one of their fundraisers. I met you at the organization and you said, sure. You said, yeah, let's get together. But you're quite busy because you're involved in so many different things.
Yeah, that's right.
You're involved in almost everything. So I don't know much about you, so this gives me a chance to. Let's start off with, where were you born?
I was born in Cologne. It's one of the oldest cities in Germany, which is at the Rhine River, and it's famous for carnival and for happy people.
For carnivals?
Carnival.
Really?
Not carnivores. Carnival. You know, the celebration.
I know carnival. Carnival. Yeah.
Yes.
Don't see. And if I say anything about the way you're saying it, I speak two languages only.
Yes.
So, and I used to think that everyone else had an accent until I realized everybody has an accent.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. So, do you have siblings? Do you have brothers and sisters?
I have one brother.
Is he older or younger?
He's 4 years younger than me.
Are you guys close?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, he's living in Germany, of course, but yeah.
I mean, but did you grow up to be close? I mean, did you play a lot together and do you do things together?
We did a lot together. We did skateboarding. He is a musician. He plays classical guitar. I played the piano. Yeah, I mean, and skateboarding and then basketball. So he was always very fanatic and very radical in everything he was doing. So he was getting all the Michael Jordan videos. He put weights on his feet, and then he learned to dunk. And I was always doing basketball. I was doing skateboarding. Maybe I was a little bit more passionate about it, like him. But yeah, so we did a lot together. But you know, sometimes, of course, between brothers, you also have some different opinions, and there's also this eternal rivalry between men, kind of this competitive spirit, and sometimes this comes also through, I would say.
Tell me, so like when you were growing up, would you consider yourself to be more academic, or were you more sports-minded?
It's a good question. Actually, I mean, my father was a physicist, or is a physicist and a scientist. At the same time, he's a musician. He's doing sports, and so we had quite a universal upbringing where we had philosophical discussions on the one hand side, and on the other hand, actually, yeah, I think you did gymnastics, right?
I was a gymnast.
I did also gymnastics.
Is that right?
I went up to the German championships. Yes.
You were a competitive gymnast?
Yes.
When did you start? How old were you when you started? Now you got me interested.
I was 7 years old. 7 years old? Or yeah, 7 years old when I started.
Because I started when I was 15, so I was really late in doing it.
Okay.
And it's because they wouldn't let me get involved in other areas because of my temperament.
Okay.
I wasn't good in team sports.
I
wasn't very good at all. And I tended to be more on the hot end. If someone hit me and I didn't have the ball, or I thought it was unfair and the judge didn't see it. So when gymnastics came along, it fit me perfectly because you have to be a little messed up in your head to be a gymnast. You can't be a normal person to be a gymnast.
Yeah.
It's the most extreme sport you could ever be involved in.
Yeah, that's right.
And everybody, that's what tickles me. When you think about it, Christian, think about all the sports that they start calling them extreme sports, but when do they call them extreme sports? When they start doing gymnastic skills in them. It's not until they do a flip does it become extreme.
Yeah.
Right?
I think, I mean, doing this kind of sport, which you use body and mind, is the utmost kind of striving for perfection. And so, you know, I was always very ambitious since my childhood, and when there was a competition, and you do all the different disciplines, and then you lead until the last one, and then you do a mistake, and then you get a silver medal. So I had this kind of scene where I was leading, and then I just only got the silver medal. I mean, silver medal is also good, but
you were second place. You missed first place by that
yeah,
much.
and I was so angry about myself, and then I wanted to go home. Actually, I didn't want to stand on the podium with a silver medal
because you knew you were number one.
Yeah, exactly. So
let me ask you, tell me about that event right away. What was your favorite apparatus? What was your favorite area in gymnastics?
Floor.
That's the base of all gymnastics.
Yeah.
But not everybody. When I did gymnastics, you could pick one piece of equipment.
Yeah.
And I think by your time, you had to be an all-around if you wanted to compete.
Yes.
Because I went to city, and it depends on how big your area is too. I went to city. I went to league and then city, and our league was big. We had a lot of people in our league. So to get into league, you had to be good.
Yeah.
Because you're competing against so many people. But I made it to league, and then I made it to city, but I didn't make it to state. Because it changed.
The United States is of course much bigger than Germany, so
it changed drastically. What was one of your biggest skills that you could do on floor exercise?
I don't know how to express this in English.
Well, express this. Show me in your hands. Do a double back. Could you do a double back flip?
Double back, for example.
Could you double full?
No, this one I couldn't.
Okay. I had trouble doing fulls. I could do the double, but I couldn't do going this way. It was interesting. So you were a competitive gymnast, and you started at 7 years old.
Yeah.
Okay. So what was your childhood like? What was your neighborhood like? Were the homes close together, or were you more in the country, or?
I was rather growing up in the city, but it was not. It was not it was not a metropolitan area or something like this. I was born in Cologne, the first 7 years in Cologne, and was a very green area there. And actually, there was a hospital opposite of our place where we were living. We actually lived in the beginning in an apartment. It was a big apartment, and I had to walk to the kindergarten actually. And I remember. Maybe it's that they told me that, but I got lost one time, and then. But I found my way home by myself, but I was crying. And the hospital had a rooftop, and there was a tree. So with our gang, we actually climbed up on the roof of the hospital, and we collected some wood, and we made a fire. And then somebody actually stole some sausages, and we did some barbecue on the hospital top.
But how old were you when this happened?
I was maybe 5 years old or something like this.
At 5 years old, you did that?
Yeah, the others were older, so I always enjoyed being with older guys, and so there was a kind of a thrill, doing these kind of things, and it was fun, and we were actually not found doing this, but we were really. In a kind of a thrill doing this. So
that's how you were growing up. So what other things did you do? Of course you rode bicycles, and you said you were good on skateboard?
Skateboard I started later, but I had the skills. I did also windsurfing, and played the piano, and of course going to school. And we always spent long vacation in the south of France, or in the wintertime in Switzerland. My grandparents had a wonderful chalet in Switzerland, and so I learned skiing also very early. And in Switzerland you have the Swiss ski school, which has 6 basic steps or 6 levels, and we did all the 6 levels. And then we also did some racing, ski racing.
So you said your grandparents on your father or mother's side?
Mother's side, actually.
On your mother's side.
Yes.
So your mother's Swiss?
No, I mean they had just a house in Switzerland.
So everyone's German. But
and we also had a house in the Netherlands, which was at a river. We had horses there, so we could do basically horse riding as well.
So from what age were you doing all of this? From what age do you remember start doing all of this?
This was since early childhood, basically.
So that's all you ever remembered? That was your lifestyle? Having
the
a
lifestyle, I mean, we had the lifestyle that, for example, the house in Holland, in the Netherlands, was only an hour and a half by car driving, so we went there often for the weekends, and sometimes we had longer weekend, and we had a motorboat. We could do water skiing on the river. There was also a lake which was owned by a friend of my grandfather, which was a private lake, so we could just there was also a rowboat, and my grandfather had set up what how do you call it? So I could have rings, and I could also
the high bar, the high bar.
Yeah, the high bar.
Okay.
The high bar. So
did you know how to do giants?
Yes.
Okay.
So we could practice there, and
but then you had rips and everything too. You had all the calluses.
Yes.
And when sometimes they tear and
yeah.
Oh. You know, and then I don't know, but they used to make us. They'd chalk it. You get chalk,
yes.
and we'd have to go like this to try to make it harder.
Yeah.
We did that, and then we had the spray for hard hand. You remember that?
Yes.
Yeah. And then we had the grips you put on, the leather grips you put on. But did you have the wood part in there when you were younger? I think you probably had the wood.
I think it was metal.
Oh, you had metal that went here?
Yeah.
So we didn't. We just had the grips, and sometimes the grips would pop when you're doing your giant.
Yeah.
And then you come off, and if you're lucky, you didn't get hurt. Yeah.
That could be painful.
Tell me about it.
Yeah.
But that's gymnastics. You had to have a very high pain threshold to be a gymnast. So you had water skiing, you could do horseback riding, what else?
In Switzerland, of course, we did skiing in wintertime, and in summertime we went into the mountains, hiking, mountain climbing, and sometimes, you can do a lot of things in the mountains, basically. Right. And we had I had always long hikes, actually, with my father, especially with my father, also with the whole family. But
what did your mother do? What did your mother do?
Yeah, she also joined us for the hiking.
Did she work at all?
She actually, I mean, she became a school teacher, but she did not practice teaching. I think she broke up her studies in between. Because I was born actually when she was 20 years old. So
okay.
And so she was always there for us.
So she was always there. So she mainly made sure she took care of the two of you, or the three of you. The three of you. She had three boys, and your father had two.
She was. I mean, she is great. She's a great cook at an early stage. I mean, nowadays people think about organic food, and they think about how to eat and how to eat healthy. My mother has been thinking about this and has been reading books about it and has practiced this kind of healthy organic food since we were kids.
Since you were kids.
So maybe that's one reason why I'm still healthy, actually.
Yes.
So
do you know John Walsh?
Yes, of course.
He made a very poignant point the other day when he was here on the podcast. He said when we were kids, because he's close to my age, there was no such thing as organic food. It's all organic. Then the food companies, as they started processing the foods more and more, flipped it. They've got you calling what they produce, which is not food, food.
Right.
And then they call real food organic. And they charge you more to get real food now. It costs you more to get organic if you buy it through the store instead of getting their processed food.
Yeah, now, I mean, nowadays, even the large corporations and the so-called world leaders realize that the industrial agriculture and mass-scale production has destroyed our food systems, basically. And if we destroy our food systems, we destroy the foundation of our life, basically. So, I mean, this would now lead from the childhood into what I'm doing right now. Actually.
Kind of. But prior to that, but let's go back to your childhood a little bit. I want to ask you this. So, with the lifestyle that you had, did most of the kids in your neighborhood have the same lifestyle that you did?
No, I wouldn't say this. So
did you know that? Did you know that when you were growing up? How old were you when you started to realize there's a difference between your friends in the neighborhood and you?
That's a good question. Maybe I didn't think that it was really special when I was a child, but and I also wished that, and of course, I mean, sometimes we took other children with us to Holland, for example, or even to Switzerland, and shared these experiences with other people. But I don't know. I mean, I didn't have the feeling that I was privileged or something like this.
I understand that. Of course you didn't. That's why I'm asking. Yeah. When did it hit you, and you realized that you were privileged? Because there's a time that comes.
Yes.
When you're, it's like, for example, let's say you're Superman, and you can do things that nobody else can do, but you don't know it at the beginning.
Right.
Until somehow or another, enough people are telling you, they come on the trips with you or whatever, and they go, wow, you know how to water ski? They don't even know what that is. And then they see a horse for the first time, they go, you get on top of it and you can ride it? And you're already at home playing the piano, but that was part of your life always. So your life, when did you think your father's job was different than your friends?
When you're a child and the adult people said that I have this tempting smile, I have these how do you call it? Dimples, and in Japanese you say chia hoya sareru. So you are cheered up by everybody, my parents and also my grandparents. Especially my grandfather, he celebrated a big birthday party, for example, and then all these people came to celebrate these birthday parties, and then we are there as children, and of course we are urged to help and to serve the guests and so on, but they all say, wow, you grow tall, and of course every time they say, oh, you became very tall, and you say, and but yeah, in our family, we, like I said in the beginning, we had a lot of these philosophical discussions as well, and I was reading a lot of books. So, and we were also reading books together. I was reading together with my father. He was reading books to us in the evening before sleeping, and then we asked questions. And through the books, through the films, through our discussions, we got an understanding that, of course, there are people in the world who actually suffer, and a lot of people who suffer, and even though we didn't have the feeling to be very privileged, we had this awareness that this is not the only existing world, so that there's a lot of misery and a lot of suffering in the world. And so we were always aware, and especially my mother was very social, very. She always wanted to help people. Her name is Elizabeth, and Elizabeth, there's a Holy Elizabeth, I don't know if you know that, but that's the reason why my grandfather got the name for her, to make her this caring person, and she became.
Is your mother doing well? Your mother and father are still together?
They are doing well. They are together. I mean, this is also, it's something in our modern times which does not exist so much, that you have a family which always keeps together. And for me, this is also one of the biggest values, that I also have my family now, and I have only been married for, I don't know, 17 years.
17?
16? No, 16. 16 years. Yeah,
how many children do you have?
Two, actually. Two boys.
How old? 2 boys?
Yeah.
So you copied your father?
Yes, yes.
How many years difference between the 2 boys?
They are only 3 years difference.
Okay.
So
are they close? Are you getting them to be close?
Yeah, they are close.
So how old are they now?
Actually, my son had birthday the day before yesterday. He is now 14 years old. 14. So he's getting tall and.
Yes. Are they taller than you?
Not yet.
Not yet. Are you taller than your father?
Yes.
You are. Okay. And your mother, of course, you're taller than her because your father's taller than your mother. Right. So how old is your father now? Just out of curiosity.
He's 77 now.
Okay.
Yeah,
he's a young
77. Man. Yeah, he will be 78 this year.
Okay.
Actually.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
He's very fit. He is doing still windsurfing every year in summer. He's also playing jazz. He plays several instruments and.
What are the instruments he plays?
He plays a clarinet, the saxophone, the flute. He also plays piano and guitar. So.
That is, Does your brother play an instrument too?
Yeah, my brother is a professional musician.
Oh, you said that. I'm sorry. That's right.
He's
you just said that.
Classical guitar, and he's actually one of the best guitarists in the world.
Is that right?
Yes.
What's his name?
Stefan Schmitz. So if you go on YouTube, Stefan Schmitz guitar, you will find his channel.
Right away.
Actually.
And your mother, what instruments does she play?
She learned piano when she was a child, but she stopped at a certain time. But she likes singing, so we have been, and she's singing in the choir in church. They do a lot of camping actually with camping car, and my father takes the guitar, and then they sit outside when the sun goes down, and they're singing together. So
that is beautiful, beautiful. Does he still have a beard?
Yeah, a beard.
Has he always a beard?
A beard, yes.
Has he always had a beard?
I only remember him as a beard. So.
But you see him all the time. He's your father.
Yes.
You've never known him clean shaven.
Actually, my son had his 14th birthday, and now for this birthday, my father sent some pictures when he was 14 years old. I have it here. I mean, I can show you. But
tell me some of the discussions that you remember having as a child with your father and possibly your mother and brother that really impressed you, that you still think about now.
I was always interested in science fiction and also fantasy. So we were reading a lot of books together, and science fiction would deal with space travel, for example, would deal with exploring new civilization, new planets, and new species. And science fiction, I mean, there's always a part which might also inspire scientists. And scientists, they work on something, and sometimes it's a really a repetitive and stupid type of work, and they don't know what they do this for. But if they would read more of these books, they would be more inspired, and they would actually. So we were talking a lot about a possible future and a possible human society, and we were talking about interstellar space travel. How could that be realized, or can it be realized? I mean,
what age are you talking now? What age were you when you were talking to your father about that?
I mean, from elementary school. So we were always talking about these things, and then fascinating person also in the history was, of course, Albert Einstein, and so my father always tried to explain me the theory of relativity, for example. I was not good in grasping these abstract terms like the formula, you know, the formula of the relativity theory, but I was better in imagination. So, and maybe there could be a kind of a deeper intuition, which, for example, the Dalai Lama, he's having these dialogues with scientists sometimes, and he's not a scientist, but he can probably understand what the scientists are talking about when they talk about quantum computing, for example, or quantum physics. My father knows about quantum physics, and he knows it to the details, so he would be able to draw these formulas down, which I'm not able to do, but I'm very curious and very interested, and I have, due to these conversations, and the conversations were, I mean, they were about these potential new civilizations, they were about achievements in science, what is possible, what can humans do, what can we do, how can we do space travel, and how can we fix our problems on the planet. It was also about spiritual elements, like even, I mean, though he was a scientist, he was also believing in God. We went to church, and so these were also elements of the discussion that we tried to get an understanding about our meaning of life and also death. I mean, what would happen, what will happen if we die? What is the soul, and all these kind of things. So we had, and if you have 8 hours on a hike through the mountains in Switzerland, you're surrounded by nature. It is perfect to have these kind of discussions, and yeah. So
that is so good. I've always loved science too. Okay, so when you went through school, what were your favorite subjects? Need I ask?
It was actually not mathematics.
It wasn't mathematics, but I would think that would be one of them. That wasn't.
I mean, in Germany, in the to do the Abitur, which is the graduation from high school, you have to choose 2 major subjects and 2 subjects. So I had mathematics and English as my 2 major subjects, and then I had history and sports. So these were my 4 subjects for the Abitur. And I liked history very much. I'm even now, I like to do some research back in history. I also like musical history, so I'm doing a lot of research on composers, classical music composers. There are so many composers apart from Bach, Mozart, Beethoven. Bach, Mozart, Beethoven, everybody knows.
Because they got the popularity, right?
Do you know Sigismund von Neukomm?
No.
No.
But he was very good at his time.
Yes. Or Karl Stamitz, for example. He was the Mannheimer school. Mozart had visited Mannheim, for example. And if you do a little bit of research, you look back in history, you have a little bit of the imagination how people were living in the 18th century, what kind of troubles they had, and why they actually were able to produce this beautiful music. They had, basically the sponsors were the nobility. So if you had good relationships and connections with the nobility, you could produce beautiful music. And also all these troubles of these people, when, for example, the king,
yes,
they did not want to work with them anymore. They had to find a new sponsor, maybe.
New sponsor,
new
right,
sponsor.
of course. They had to go to another village.
Then they had to travel, actually, and they traveled quite a lot. Apart from music, there's also literature. And for example, Goethe, you know Goethe, Johann
Yes.
Wolfgang von Goethe. did you know that he went all the way down to Italy, for example? And
looking for sponsors.
Not he was
a writer.
more. He was a writer, and he was a botanist.
Okay, botanist, right.
Yeah.
Did plants and stuff.
Plants. Yes. He was also a scientist. He was also an advisor to the Thüringen. You know, Thüringen is one of the states, and the Duke of Thüringen. So he actually advised him on warfare and so on. It's very interesting, and he was also very interested in nature, and he also had an exchange with Schiller, who is another poet from these times, and there are some letters which have been left for us to read, and the vocabulary and the way of expression in this old German is really fascinating. So,
how many languages do you speak?
4 maybe.
Tell me what they are.
German, English, Japanese, and French.
And French. Christian, what I'm thinking about right now, do you think it's because you were raised with so many different interests that you were able to really go into depth in? They weren't things, this was your life. To do several different things. So that's made you basically the person you are today. So when you went to college, you had those, out of high school, you had those 4 subjects.
Yes.
When you went into college, what did you focus on?
It can be a blessing, but it can also be a curse if you are too much interested in too many topics. Nowadays people call it, how do they call it? ADHD or something? So
ADHD.
ADHD, so
yeah. Right. But that's usually when it becomes when it's troubling.
Yeah.
When people have so many things going on, they can't. But see, you have been able to manage, and I think it's because of those discussions and having the kind of parents you had. You're able to compartmentalize it. If you're skateboarding, you're skateboarding.
Yes.
If you're riding a horse, you're not thinking about skateboarding when you're riding the horse. So you've learned to become a jack of all trades and a master of many.
Yeah.
You don't look at it as troubling. It's an enjoyment for you, it looks like to me.
Yes, and that's also the reason that I was fascinated by these personalities. And Albert Einstein even, he played the violin, and he also took long walks in nature. He threw stones in the pond, and then he looked how these ripples went apart, and in his head he made a physical theory about this. These people, they are different from identities which we should actually adopt. A Silicon Valley entrepreneur or Silicon Valley investor would say, focus. You must focus, and only on this one thing. And then they say laser focused. And then I always say, I know, but there's so much else to know, so much else to do, and I don't want to waste my time focusing on one thing. I want to get more out of it, out of my time, because I actually don't know how long my time would be. My brother, I mentioned him before, 2 years ago, 2020 actually, in September, I came home from an event. I got a message from my mother. Stefan is on the way to the hospital, it's serious. And I said, wow, what is that? He had suffered from a stroke.
Aneurysm?
Yes. And so we didn't know if he would survive. We didn't know if he would be able to play the guitar again, or if he would be able to speak again even. And he had to stay 6 weeks in intensive care. And finally, actually, it was a process. Maybe after a year, he picked up the guitar again. The only thing is left is his left foot, which he is dragging behind. And also some scars on his
From the
head.
operations, yes.
Yeah.
Does he have family?
Yes, he has 2 kids as well.
How old are the kids? Same age as yours, or did you guys have
No,
them same?
they are a little bit younger.
Oh, younger, okay.
The older one is 12, I think. Is a girl, and the boy is 5. Yeah.
Now, how long have you been in Japan? I'm taking you all over the place. How long have you been there?
22 years, maybe in total.
Now, how did you? Now, in college, you didn't tell me what you studied. What was your major?
I studied.
You graduated with what?
Economics, East Asian Regional Studies. So I was focusing on East Asia, with a special focus on Japan, learning Japanese as a language, and economics and business administration was the main subject, but also sociology and geography were side subjects, basically.
Right. Now, why? What created your interest? I'm sure you and your dad never talked about Japan. That wasn't one of the topics. So where did that interest come in?
When I started answering your question, I said it could be a blessing or a curse, to be very curious for many things. And if you are curious in many things, you would have many ideas what you could study, actually. And there were these mobile advisory centers which came to the schools, and they set up their small center, and you could go there, and they had a book which they gave for free to everybody, which contained all the universities and all the study subjects in Germany. And I had a different interest, so I thought it might be great to become an artist or designer. It would be great to become a journalist. It would be great to become a doctor. It would be great to become a scientist. And I thought it could also be great to become successful in something, and you have a more generalist approach. And then we were looking through these books.
Now, this is when you first got into college.
Before getting into college.
Before you got into.
So
we tried to decide your major, what you were going to focus on.
Decided what to choose to study.
Okay.
And then basically I cut out everything which I didn't want to do. I actually did not discover this. It was called Ostasien-Wissenschaften, East Asian Regional Studies. My father found this, and then he said, "Oh, this is great. It's convenient because it's close to where we lived at that time. We were living in Wesel, and this was in Duisburg, and I could go by train, basically, living at home. It was an hour train ride."
Wait, East Asian Studies was close. You mean the college that
the
provided?
College,
college. I see. Okay,
the
okay.
College. So it was convenient. So
that was the biggest reason why.
Yes. So why don't you go there? My father said, "Why don't you go there and you get to know these people?" I went there, and every other faculty was in the university, but they had an own villa with a garden. They had it was called East Asia Villa, and so I went to this villa, and it was a very familiar kind of atmosphere. So I was going in, and they had some cherries from the tree in the backyard, and you take some cherries and get a coffee, and then we had a conversation. And especially this guy who was teaching Japanese, he was half Japanese and half German. He was a very nice person, and so I basically that made my decision to study East Asian Regional Studies.
Wow!
And so that's why I came to Japan in 1997 for an exchange program, basically.
Okay. Is that when you met your wife?
Not yet. I didn't meet my wife in 97. I met her in 2000, actually.
2000.
Yeah.
In Tokyo?
In Tokyo.
Okay. So your wife is Japanese, I'm assuming.
Is Japanese.
Okay. I don't know.
She is from Iwate, actually.
Iwate.
Yes.
Okay. Does she speak English?
She speaks English, but her German is better than her English. She had stayed 1.5 years in Frankfurt, in Germany, actually. Not with me, but...
okay, but prior to you?
Yes.
Okay. So your children, what do they speak? Your two sons?
They are bilingual. German and Japanese.
Okay.
And they learn also English now, no? So
okay, so they'll be trilingual.
Yeah.
When they finish. Do you have them at the German school, or do you have them
German school?
Oh,
yes,
you do?
yes. Mm.
Okay. Did you ever put them in Japanese school?
There were these summer programs at a nearby elementary school where we live, and in order to let them experience also the Japanese school, we put them there for 2 weeks during the summer holidays.
Mm-hmm. That's so interesting. Let me ask you this, Christian. What surprised you, the first big surprise you got in Japan?
The first big surprise? Actually, I thought that Japanese people would be extremely disciplined, and so everything they do would follow a certain kind of protocol. And then when I came the first day to the university for the exchange program, I saw that people were walking around with shorts and t-shirt, and I was wearing suit because I was thinking that everybody would be wearing suits and would be so that was a surprise, but it was kind of a surprise in an unusual way. So I was surprised how casual it was. And
I like to end the podcast by asking this question, Christian, and I do want to have you on again. I want to have you on because we have to get further in depth, because that's how you think. And I like to think the same way. There's so many different areas I could take you, and that's why the podcast you had before was part 4. You can't just talk to you about one thing. Let me ask you this: if you were to go back in time, knowing what you know right now,
yes,
to see the younger Christian, what time would you go back to, and how would you be, and what advice would you give yourself?
Maybe I would go back to the age of 17. The age of 17, it was the start of something which I was then afterwards going through for about 6 years. So it was a kind of a disease which made me face death, basically. So with everything I know now, I would probably be able to fix that and would be able to avoid being hospitalized and these kind. And you said if I go back, so if I would go back, I would probably be able to tell this younger self that you're going to have a ride, but please be careful. Don't show it to the outside. Experience what you can experience inside yourself, and do what you want to do. Experience all these kind of things, but keep it for yourself. So and then in this case I would not have all these experience too. But I mean, again, looking back, it could be that this is the precious, maybe the most precious experience I had in my life, because yes.
Thank you so much. Fantastic. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Yes. I want to thank all of you for watching. Remember, this is an audio podcast as well, so you can go online. It's on all the platforms. But if you are watching this, I want to thank you for doing so. Make sure you press like and subscribe. And remember, or should I say never forget, it's all unknown, so continue to reach for the stars, because you're too blessed to be stressed.